so your question around how do you identify it and how do you make it come to life is you treat it no differently than the business side. We need the same type of behavior and structure when it comes to personal financial planning.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the M&A Mastermind podcast presented by Cornerstone International Alliance. I'm your host, Nick Olson. On this show, I get the opportunity to talk with the brightest minds in lower middle market M&A. Together, we discuss industry intelligence, deal management, shared successes, specialized expertise, and much more. If you serve the small to medium-sized business owner, this show will offer you tactics and insights you can use and implement now to become a master in M&A. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the M&A Mastermind podcast. My guest today is the president of the Exit Planning Institute. He is a nationally recognized industry leader and growth specialist, a lifetime entrepreneur where he launched his first business at the age of 17. At 24, he sold his company to a strategic buyer and joined his father, Chris, at Aspire Management, where they focus on exit planning and M&A. Together, they purchased the Exit Planning Institute, where they introduced a value acceleration methodology, wrote an award-winning book called Walking to Destiny, a former professional indoor soccer player and team owner, enjoys racing, and they sponsor a car in the NASCAR series. Please welcome my guest today, Scott Snider. Scott, how's it going?
Nick, what's going on, man? Feeling pretty good.
I'm out of breath. That was a long intro. You got a lot of accolades.
We got to get the marketing team to cut that bad boy down for sure. No doubt.
But today here we're just here to talk about, Exit Planning Institute, your company, the CEPA designation, what that means, and then how it correlates to the M&A industry. But first, in an intro, you said you started your first business at the age of 17 and sold it at 24. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so it was kind of a childhood dream, right? Like I think every Midwestern boy likes cutting grass in the summertime. Quite literally, man, I had one job for like a month or so. And then I ended up going out on my own. Me and my buddy threw a lawnmower in the back of a Ford Taurus sedan and started a company with no really intent to be business owners. But you flash forward almost a decade later, and we actually had something that was transferable. We had a nice company, a micro market company, had about maybe 15 to 20 employees if you include the seasonal guys, and maybe 7 or 8 truck and trailer kind of operations, right? And we were doing landscape management, landscape construction, and snow and ice management here in Northeast Ohio, where I'm from Cleveland. And we had an unsolicited offer. So I guess that would have been like 24 years old. We had an offer that came in and from a competitor that we had used actually for some arbor care, some tree care work, and said, "Hey man, have you ever thought about selling your company?" And as you mentioned also in the intro, my dad created the methodology here at EPI that we now teach. And so I kind of looked at Dad and said, "Isn't this what you do, right? Like this is the kind of work you do." Now in that same time segment, Dad had just earned his CEPA designation, and he was starting to learn how to integrate the personal financial stuff, as Dad was totally on the business side. So after doing some work with Dad, and we decided to look, this was a deal that we should take. And like many, I think, owners that we all know, I immediately regretted my decision, right? I fell into that Price Waterhouse statistic that 75% of owners profoundly regret selling their business just a year after selling it. And I was miserable. I always say it's high and low. You mentioned playing professional soccer. The high was I didn't know what to do with my life, so I randomly sell the company and randomly then try out for a professional indoor soccer league here in the United States called the Major Arena Soccer League, and I play for a team called the Ohio Vortex. And you're kind of living in the next childhood dream, getting paid to play a sport that you grew up loving. But at the same time, the low for me is I was going through a pretty bad divorce. And I think whether it was the high or the low, it all stemmed back to really lack of personal planning and having your identity all kind of trapped inside of that business. And that kind of thrust me into my exit planning journey. And here we are today at EPI.
Amazing. Yeah. It's interesting to, you say it and you see it all the time. The business owner doesn't plan for that life after the sale. And, it can be a challenge. You can't really, you can do a lot of planning and you hope to, and you got to have a purpose beyond it. And at age 24, you got a lot more that you probably wanted to do. and you're not going to sell a business and retiring at age 24, most likely. And so then, yeah, what's that next step? And that next step for you guys was you and your dad bought the Exit Planning Institute to, and so tell us about, what you saw in EPI, why you guys wanted to take that step and kind of take it over and run it.
Sure. Yeah. So, during that time of trying to discover who I was and what I wanted to do, Dad finally said, after a year of me kind of wandering around, he said, "Hey man, why don't you come join Aspire Management," where him and his business partner, Andy, were and are certified exit planning advisors working on the business and value growth side. And so I gained some exposure into what they were doing. And I actually really loved it. Dad was working with all kinds of different business owners, micro market, lower middle market, different industries. And it was fascinating to me. There was a whole wide world of business out there that I wasn't exposed to as a young man. And so what I also realized is that Dad and Andy had something unique. They had taken these, if you rewind back to EPI of early days, there was only about 120 CEPAs. My dad was certificate number 93, part of the first 100 CEPAs ever certified. Peter Chrisman and Rich Jackham were teaching these concepts and theories out of their book called The $10 Trillion Opportunity. And there was maybe two things really lacking back then in 2010, 11, and 12. One, there was no process and how to, like, well, this sounds great, but how the hell do I go do this stuff? And then everybody was still showing up like in their silos. So the financial advisor would say one thing, the M&A advisor would say another, the CPA another, and it was actually just providing confusion to the business owner. And then kind of the kind of all kind of aligns. The Peter Chrisman and Rich Jackham wanted to sell EPI. It got too big for them to kind of run and manage. And their core business was actually investment banking. So they said, look, we're going to put up EPI for sale. So Dad and I take a run at it. And the first run at it fails. And so they try to take it to a like-minded organization in professional advisory. And that deal fell through. And when we heard about that, Dad and I went back to the table with them and said, look, we're passionate. Dad and I share a passion about helping owners change their outcome and growing companies of more significance, companies that are highly valuable, ready, and transferable, that are aligned to their business, personal, and financial goals. And we had thought, given Dad's methodology and approach, that we could, now, instead of teaching business owners, we could actually go out and teach the professional advisor. And if we could teach the professional advisor, both business owner and advisor would speak the same language together. And then the advisors would stop showing up in their silos and actually show up together. And that would be the way that Dad and I change the outcome. So that second run that we take at EPI, we get the deal done and we close as we close as the year ends in 2012. And in 2013, Dad and I took over the business, owned the business, and put the value acceleration methodology into the core curriculum for EPI, for what EPI does and who they were to become. And so we have our first CEPA program then in May of 2013. And after a couple of evolutions of the methodology, here we are today.
And you mentioned, advisors in their silos. Who is the CEPA designation for? You said the advisors, but is it all the people that you just referenced? Like, if you're one of these professions, like, you should consider looking into getting your CEPA, like who, like, kind of dive into like who those people are.
Yeah, today the makeup of the EPI community is about 10,000 certified exit planning advisors that are really a part of 4 groups. And then there's like a splattering of all kinds of advisors. And so the top 4 people becoming CEPAs today are the financial advisor and wealth manager, the M&A advisor or business broker, the business consultant or business coach, and the accountant CPA. Those are your top 4. The 5th is a wide variety. Out of the 10,000 CEPAs that we have, they represent about 19 different professional disciplines. And I think there's a big emerging segment of functional advisors that come in and out of the equation, whether they're from the business, personal, and financial side. People like personal planners, fractional CFOs, estate planning attorneys, fractional sales folks, cybersecurity folks. And I mention them because I think it's important. If you begin to change your mentality from income generation or just risk mitigation or expense reduction, the kind of the specialty that you do for the owner and the immediate impact that you have for the owner, and you start talking about how much value that creates for an owner, that ecosystem of advisors becomes quite robust. And so people in those other functional areas are becoming CEPAs because they want to learn what it takes to drive value and learn and help align business owners' business, personal, and financial goals. And they want to know how particularly specialty or expertise fits inside of that equation and how much value they can actually bring to the table. So it's starting to expand well outside those top four or maybe different 19 to really any advisor that sits around the business owner and advises them on how to scale and grow or how to align business, personal, and financial goals. And so, again, the ecosystem actually becomes quite robust when you change your mindset to value creation.
Yeah, I love that. And like I said, it's a good way to look at that. You talk about the M&A advisors as being one of those top four. In your opinion, what are some of the most significant advantages an M&A advisor could achieve by getting their CEPA designation?
Yeah, so I think from the M&A standpoint, maybe two major things that I would address. One, deal flow. So I know that's important to obviously all of the M&A folks. My dad was doing a little bit of stuff back in his day when he was primarily the value growth consultant, but he would get involved in some deals along the way. For me, deal flow is one thing. One, the biggest two folks that are types of advisors that are inside of the EPI community today are the financial advisor and the consultant. So I would think that even if 50% of the business owners out there want to sell to a third party, the M&A advisor inside of the EPI community is highly sought after. So I think there's a significant play for the M&A advisor in becoming a CEPA just so they can hang out in the community and speak that language and develop relationships that return. I also think that you get involved then way earlier on in the equation. If you looked at our methodology, we have this 3-gated methodology that starts and decide, walk through, prepare, or starts and discover, walks through, prepare, and then ends and decide. And typically in decide, we're executing one of those exit options. And that's where naturally, I think a business owner goes, well, when I'm ready to sell my company and I decide to sell it, I'm going to bring in the M&A guy to help me sell to a competitor, third party, private equity, whatever it might be. I believe the other thing that happens when becoming a CEPA is that we actually showcase the M&A advisor way earlier on in the discover gate because you guys all know what the buyers are after. So it helps a business owner gather early insights to really understand their business from a buyer's perspective. This whole thing, like we're going to call your baby ugly, getting used to your baby being called ugly and torn apart so that you're ready when that time comes if you're going to sell to that third party. So I think it just gives them some early insights. So those would be like maybe segment number one is positioning yourself early, grabbing deal flow and positioning yourself better in front of advisors. And two, I just think that they want I would say the second thing is just a general professional development activity. They're looking for a different way to think. They're looking to surround themselves with like-minded advisors. They're looking to be challenged. I think those that want to become best-in-class advisors have three key elements. One of them being a kind of a purposeful growth, always be learning mentality. And I think many advisors out there are realizing that regardless of where they fit into the equation, owners are looking for relationship-based advisors, not transactional ones. And so I think having the education generally puts you at the front of the list and makes you a more premier, what we would call best-in-class advisor.
What is your perspective on, the M&A advisor? I'm assuming you want them to get their CEPA, but if that's not the case, another good alternative is having relationships with someone who is a CEPA, and what that looks like. But for the M&A advisor, like what different, you talk about the value acceleration methodology. How does that differentiate? If you're going to connect with CEPAs compared to other exit planning professionals, how does your methodology set the CEPA apart and differentiates yourselves from others in the industry?
I always say that the CEPA is very broad, but not very deep, and it's very intentional that way. I don't care if you're the M&A advisor, the financial advisor, the business consultant, the estate planning attorney, the personal planner, the fractional CFO. If you hold the CEPA designation, it really says maybe two or three things very prominently. Number one, you understand what it takes to drive value into a company and align business, personal, and financial goals. You might not do all of that work, but you understand what it takes to have a company of significance that's well aligned, that will sell for top dollar, and you'll have an owner that's very happy in the next phases of life versus profoundly regretting what they have done. And so you are trained to know that. Two, you're trained to be a collaborator and connector of people, relationship-based with the business owner. So though I might do M&A work, I have a robust network of folks that come in and out of this equation. So I know that I know that when I look at a CEPA, that this person is going to be kind of masterful at connecting people, and they're going to have have a robust network. And I think those are the two major differentiators that they bring to the table. Regardless of advisor type, you're going to have a more holistic advisor in front of you with a very robust network that understands the business owner mindset and how to get the job done.
Obviously, a robust network is great and kind of speaks for itself. But you said, you're in the business of relationships. Why do you guys hold that so close to to the vest as to a value proposition that you want
Yeah,
CEPAs to have?
yeah, no doubt. I would say that we do a ton of research at EPI, probably 20 years worth of research at this point. And what we are consistently finding in more recent research is kind of what I was touching on earlier, is that business owners of the next generation, so whether it be Generation X, people 43 to 60 years old, millennials, 28 to 42 years old, they both in particular are looking not to just be a number or a transaction, but they're actually calling for relationships. I had 5 business owners on stage at our exit planning summit, which is our big industry and professions conference. And I said, look, be nice, because there's a bunch of advisors in the crowd. But as owners, I have to ask you, what do you look for in a professional advisor? And all 5 of them really said 2 things. One, they're looking for somebody from the outside to hold them accountable. They want a respected accountability buddy. And 2, they said, I'm looking for a relationship. I want you to know the pain points and desires and what I'm trying to go out and achieve. And so that in your robust network, you know that I have a cybersecurity problem. And though you might be my financial advisor, you go, you know what, I might have a guy for that. I heard that, and I understand where you're at in your business owner journey. I understand your characteristics inside of your generation. A 50-year-old person is going to think a lot different than a 24, 25-year-old person. I understand how you're showing up to the equation. What stage of growth are you in, and what maybe are your needs? And so, you can help the business owner in different ways, indirectly through listening, asking the right questions, and connecting to the owner the right way. And I think that's why we at EPI tend to focus a lot on relationship building activities with business owners versus kind of getting them through that transaction. I think that the hourly rate, the transaction life is transitioning itself as well.
There are a couple of things, maybe some tips you can give our audience about developing those relationships with the business owner or the professional, business advisor.
Sure. I would say in terms of the advisor working with the business owner, we have this whole course that we teach around having more empowering conversations with owners. And it's based on this research that I'm talking about. Condense it really quick. One, I think you have to look at owners in 3 ways. One, what generation they're in. If you looked at the 3 generations in the marketplace, millennials, Gen Xers, and baby boomers, 51% of the privately held companies are owned by a boomer, 43% owned by a Gen Xer. So right there, that's the majority of the market. At the highest level, regardless if they're a business owner, just generational characteristics, the baby boomer is the inventor of the 60-hour work week and very tied to success, whether that's success in their golf game, in their business, or in their family. They are very passionate individuals and competitive individuals. They want to feel a sense of success. Whereas a Gen Xer wants to feel balanced. They're in this natural search for balance. They're a work smarter, not harder generation, so on and so forth. So understanding generations is key. Next is understanding specifically to the business owner, how are they showing up? Are they pivoting their mindset, which is probably all of our ideals clients are saying, look, I know I need to grow a company with value in mind. I know I need to align these business, personal, and financial goals. I'm pivoting my mindset to be a more value creator versus income generator, a more value creator versus lifestyle business. There's the explorer. These folks are kind of, kind of an intriguing kind of behavior for them. They're just kind of looking to explore the world of value creation and might be considering changing their mindset. Or these folks are pivoting their mindset, meaning that they either have a great deal on the table and they feel they need to take it, so a positive thing, or B, they're affected by these destroyers of business where they're affected by a divorce, a death, a disability, something that's forcing them out of their business. Then you apply, the third component is applying the state of owner readiness survey statistics. So you know how ready and prepared they are to kind of head down this value acceleration path. Then we can start having conversations with them. So we run a formula called intrigue plus empower equals action. I think all of us, whether we're doing M&A work or estate planning work or accounting work, getting the owner to get down the path and actively working is absolutely critical. The intriguing behavior, I think the difference that we see in the market today is many advisors are hired by the owner with the intent to give them the right answer. So we show up as the expert and we go, boom, here it is. That's the answer. In the exit planning space, given we're doing something as intimate as, I think, selling the owner's business, we have to be asking the right questions and listening. So there's a listening behavior that we have to learn as advisors. And then the empowering style behavior is kind of a patience mindset, if you will, because you have to be willing to spend a little bit extra time with the owner to educate them. What we find inside of the owner demographic is that 60% of owners would march down the path of action if you just spend a little bit more extra time with them. I think the common behavior that business advisors have today is that we kind of wait until the owner becomes a client. Then for the attorneys, the accountants, maybe even the M&A people are like, look, I don't want to give you a lot of advice because you haven't signed my contract yet, and that's how I get paid. But the owner of the future, and thus the advisor of the future, have to be willing to spend a little bit more education time with an owner around these topics that we're talking about today on your show. Is, again, how do I drive value into the company? How do I align business, personal, and financial goals? Can you teach me more of that? So the people that are spending more time with owners create that better relationship, and boom, that's the kind of stuff that thrusts you forward with what we would call the kind of advisor and owner of the future.
This episode of the M&A Mastermind podcast is powered by Cornerstone International Alliance, where leading M&A firms come together. As part of this international network, you get access to global opportunities, over 200 M&A experts, enhanced collaboration and knowledge sharing, and some of the best M&A tools and resources available, all to help you take your firm to the next level. Ready to join this exclusive network? Visit cornerstoneia.com/new member today. How do you've mentioned the personal, financial, business goals all being aligned. Like, from a high level, what does that process look like? When does that happen? Why is that so important to make sure that you're kind of kicking off that relationship, on the right way and moving them forward to that exit?
Yeah, I think every owner knows that they run down a business path, and because it's natural, it's every day, right? We're looking at 3-year strategies. We're looking at 3-year visions, 1-year strategies, and 90-day sprints. And we're always being told by our professional advisors to work on the business and not in it. So that's one path. The second path that actually runs concurrently to that many of us as owners aren't on, is a personal path that embraces the personal financial planning. And then the personal planning, who are we outside of the business? What makes us tick and go? And how are we utilizing and leveraging our business to fund and create other opportunities in our life that we want? So your question around how do you identify it and how do you make it come to life, is you treat it no differently than the business side. And that's why I always start there, is that I think it's very natural to say, look, we have these big objectives. We track these KPIs. We could tie it back to the strategy that we have. Again, as owners, that seems very natural for us. We need the same type of behavior and structure when it comes to personal and personal financial planning. We need a 10-year vision for where we want to go. We need 90-day action plans to get us there. And so for us at EPI, we teach a thing called STEP. STEP exercise is really nothing wildly unique. There are different personal planners out there and executive coaches that put owners and executives down this path. For us, STEP means we have to investigate what spiritual things do we want in our life. Is there attachment to some type of higher meaning or being for you? That's spiritual. T is simple. It's things. What things do we want? Do we want homes? Do we want cabins, RVs, motorcycles? Like, what stuff do we want in our life? E is experiences. So what type of experience do we want to have? Do we want to have the experience of being able to send our son and daughter to a great college and university? Do we want to be able to have a European vacation? What experiences do we want in life? And then P in STEP is people. So what people are in our life? Family, friends, colleagues, what people are in our life? And so once you work through those categories, they can all fit into your 10-year vision and then all begin to align. And what we'll find is that they all kind of power each other, right? Is that we begin actually to look at our business not as an operating entity, but we start looking at the business as another asset in our portfolio that helps power this personal financial plan that actually powers our personal plan. Being a business owner is a part of that, of course, but there's many other aspects of it. But it's at the heart of it, at the foundation of it, personal and personal financial planning are no different than business planning. We just don't make them as intentional as we typically would do with a business.
Right. Yeah, I feel like, you hear and all the time where, you want to have a plan for after you sell the business because most times it's your identity, it's your like you said, it's your baby. That is what you think about. That's who you are. Who are you? I'm a business owner. And I think that I love the acronym STEP and how you explain that because when you're talking about that stuff early on, whether it's, I'm not going to sell for 10 years, so it still needs to happen early on and still needs to happen while I'm running the business. But I would imagine after the sale, like that's gotta have that transition to be a little bit smoother because you've already outlined like these important things, both personally and financially.
Well, you know how it, fits in life. I always say that when owners think about personal planning, they think about hobbies. And so a lot of us go, man, I'm going to play more golf. Like if I had 60 extra hours in my week, I'm going to play more golf. And then what you realize after you sell your business, you've been playing golf for 60 hours. Now you hate the game because all of us are average at it anyways. And now it's wildly frustrating. So you don't know why you're playing golf. Like you play golf today, but why? What purpose is it filling? What how does it fit into the overall plan? To give you a quick example, I own an RV because I found that my purpose is driving unique experiences for myself and others. And so once I've investigated that purpose, it actually fits well into what I do as a businessman and entrepreneur myself is I own the Exit Planning Institute because it creates these transformational experiences for our professional advisors, which also create these unique experiences for business owners as they successfully and significantly sell their companies. And one might even challenge, though I didn't know it back then, that it was the reason why I owned a landscaping company in the way that I did. We stopped plowing snow because it wasn't filling any unique experience, right? Anybody can plow a parking lot. But if you looked at some of the more unique work that we did in the landscaping company, when we would go into a assisted living facility, for example, we would do a gardening program for their residents and have raised planter boxes so that people in wheelchairs could go outside and garden immediately. That was something unique and fulfilling. Or I can always remember we built a baseball field inside of a subdivision one time, and we were able to go back to that baseball field, and they had a little league games going on that brought families together. It was fulfilling a larger meaning. And so whether it's in the professional education world that I'm in now, or in the green industry, the landscaping industry, years ago, back in 2010, I guess that was, and before, it was all kind of fulfilling this thing. So I actually don't play a lot of golf because it probably provides a really crappy experience to those around me because I get frustrated and then we don't play well and I have a bad attitude, right? So nonetheless, yeah, I think when you said it, I think really well is if you look at that step kind of exercise or approach, well, wouldn't you just be doing that in your life today? And if you had it all together, you would know what purpose your business is filling and be looking forward to. I find that business owners, Nick, are never running towards something. They're always running away from it. And so I'm going to sell my business. I'm going to get this cash and I'm running away. Like it's my next fate. Well, what am I running to? So what you're telling me that you've ran a business for 20 years, worked 60 hours a week, dump your heart, soul, creativity, all of this passion into the business, and you're running to the golf game. That's what we're running to every day. It's not going to work. And so I find that, and it's not a bad thing. We're running away because it's the exit, but you have to be running to something. And to your point, I think we should be running to something every single day. And so that's why we say exit strategy is business strategy. There's nothing different, whether you're 25 years old just starting or 70 years old trying to more immediately exit your business. We should all be running towards something. All these things are just things that we're doing in life to thrust something more down the line.
Yeah, I mean, it's finding what you're passionate for, and obviously, business owners are very passionate about their business, but that's the business side, and finding what you're passionate about on the personal side, and like I said, they work 60, 80 hours a week, like, and then eventually you got to get yourself out of the business so you're not, the bottleneck and you're not the value of the company. So,
Exactly.
start figuring that stuff out as you go. And I love that you guys do that because the business owner is not thinking about that. They're just working like, hey, how am I going to grow this business? How are we going to increase sales? How are we going to, do the next big thing? And then thinking about, your personal and your family and all that sort of stuff, I think is just a great approach to how you do it. And, with that, you look at the M&A, transaction, the exit transaction. What are some things that you guys see and I'm hoping to prevent, I would imagine, in working with these professional advisors. What are some common like issues or pitfalls that you see in an M&A transaction or a deal that maybe could have been avoided or even improved by,
Yeah,
having that
sure.
CEPA involvement early on?
Yeah, I would say maybe two major things come to mind really at the end of the day. One, they're just unprepared for the actual transaction that happens. I think selling a business is friggin' hard, man. And it's like not only is somebody kind of critiquing your life's work, but there's all kinds of stuff that they're asking for, right? And I think for a business owner, your life is already kind of chaotic, right? It might be organized chaos, but now you're going to overlay investment banking meetings, buyer meetings, and you're going to have to make these decisions that affect the rest of your life and your employee's life and your customer's life when you're selling. And you're only in this like small dating period. To me, it's like meeting meeting your girlfriend online. You date her for a couple of months, and then you're going to get married, and you're like, whoa, I don't even know anything about you. And I think, and that's just the nature of I think the M&A world. But if we're prepared early and often, I think that that world actually becomes a little bit easier to navigate because at least we're prepared. We might have already be building a virtual data room. We might have an investment banker, a part of our company or a part of our conversations earlier on. So they're teaching me what the buyers might look for, teaching me what private equity might look for. We might be doing stuff like a quality of earnings early on because we know a private equity group's going to do it anyway. So we might as well do our own research. And so I think that is important. And then I also think that knowing your exit strategy provides you options and an understanding of what's next in the future. I don't think enough in our exit planning world. We don't talk enough about net proceeds, deal structure, deal terms, and then this like integration and optimization once the companies come together or join a portfolio of companies. I think again, preparing early and often allows you to, as an owner, allows you to navigate not necessarily a pitfall, but navigate something that I think is really difficult, to do. And so I just think that it also gives you the last thing I would say is it also gives you options along the way. I think a lot of us think that selling our business is a one bite of the apple kind of game. I actually think it could be a multiple bites of the apple kind of game. So you might sell 25 or 50% of your company today, and then you hold for a little bit with your private equity partner, and you might sell the rest of it in another 5 years. And so you get a two bites of the apple. I think being prepared just gives us options along the way. And I think more options for us as owners, the better.
You're absolutely right. Preparation gives you more options. Absolutely. There are probably 10-ish plus options to exit your company, understanding all those options.
Exactly.
But if you're put in a position to have to sell right now and you haven't prepared, then your options are very limited. And so I think that's a great way to plan early. I had not heard the correlation of M&A being like online dating before, but you're now you're now.
I mean, it makes sense to me. I was trying to think of in the moment like something fast, where it's like
Yeah,
you meet somebody online, you go on like a couple of dates over 90
yeah,
days, and you're like, all right, let's sell my $15 million company or my $80 million company together. Let's get married.
that I've owned for
You
40
just
years.
wouldn't. Most people, though, I know certainly I have a couple of friends that met online, and within 1 year they were married, and it is going successful. Most people hang out for at least a year. Like I got married 2 years ago, but I was dating my now wife for maybe 3 years before that. So there's a period of time where we got to know each other before we made the big commitment. And yeah, I just think in the M&A world, it's just not that way.
I think it's funny. I think it's spot on. It's a good
Well,
analogy.
hopefully we can give your listeners a laugh down
Yeah,
because
exactly. Right. um, what are some key indicators that you guys look for to understand if a business and its owner are truly exit ready?
so in our approach, we would go through an assessment that we call an enterprise value assessment. And this happens in the discover gate of our methodology. So we try to keep it actually very objective, right? And I think that's some of the problem for the owners is it either is or it is or it isn't. And it's on kind of a spectrum, if you will. And so my point being is we're going to look at the readiness of the company. So from a buyer's perspective, how ready is this company to be transitioned? Two, we're going to look at how attractive the company is in the current marketplace, and then our CEPAs would look at how personally prepared as an owner are you for this transition. you quite literally, if you came through this, and actually me and my dad are doing this in our own business this month on the 19th, actually. And what we would do is we would go in and they would score us. An advisor would score us, and you'd come out with a percentage, a readiness score. And that would be then applied to your range of value inside of the business side. And we would know that from a personal side as well. And so we try to keep it really objective with these readiness scores. And that allows us to kind of pick what we need to work on. Where are we weak and strong, right? Like for me, I would say my weakest link in the three-legged stool approach would be I'm a weak in personal financial planning. My financial advisor is always on my back, making sure that I'm investing conservatively and I'm well diverse. Where my dad might say he struggles with personal planning, right? He's very tied to his business. He's the creator of the methodology that we teach. So his struggles might be in, well, I'm 66 years old. What do I truly want to do in the next phases of my life as now a grandfather, an exited owner? Like what is now do I want to write some more books? Like what do I want to go do? And again, not right or wrong. It's just every owner has their battle within, I think, the value acceleration methodology. But in terms of exit readiness, we would score these things in a very objective way so that we would know as owners and as advisors what we really need to go to work.
Yeah, like I said, that just goes back to the preparation, where you're at now, what you need to do to get to where you need to be, and what does that timeline look like? Because, like I said, stuff happens that you can't control, and if you can prepare yourself, you hear stories too often where business owner dies, left to the spouse, they don't know how to run the business. Like now, what do they do? And if you're doing that work ahead of time, God forbid that happens, but if it does, like that onus on the spouse is a lot less, and they have a better direction. And so I think the preparation early on is great, and I think that's really the theme that I'm that I'm hearing in our conversation today is prepare and prepare early, and you're going to be ready for what life has to throw at you.
Prepare early, and you're kind of always prepared, whether you're kind of thrown a curveball or it's deliberate, right? And yeah, I mean, you do have to talk about these unplanned events. I don't know if you watch this new show, Landman. It's like a spinoff of it, right? Landman.
Yeah.
And it's probably the exit planning guy in me, right? One, I think like Taylor Sheridan makes great shows, right? So I'm into all of his series. But Landman is literally what we're talking about right now, right? Like Monty owns this, what is from the outside in, right? Looks very attractive, a high performing, privately held, best performing oil company, not a big national brand, but in that smaller segment, the top performing privately held company in the gas and oil business. And then Monty, what seemingly is in his upper 50s, has a heart attack, doesn't recover and dies, leaves the business to his wife. And not to spoiler alert anybody that listening to your show, but in the new season, it's not going so well, right? So I don't know if you've, Nick,
there's
watched
some surprises about the finances too.
The whole thing is the relationships, financials, funding, capital raises, even like just the general how to, like in the latest episode, right? His wife is trying to negotiate contracts. And he's like, shouldn't the president of the company be here? And she goes, nah, I can do this. So it's just a total train wreck right now. And I find myself watching it with my wife, man, and saying, like, my wife is probably like, dude, can we turn off the show because you're just talking about business the entire time versus enjoying the show with me this evening? Because I was like, honey, have you ever wondered what I do? This is what we do.
Yeah.
We prevent stuff like this.
Right. So if you want to learn more about the Exit Planning Institute, go watch Landman. That's what I'm hearing.
If you're a business owner that wants to know how crazy it can be after you exit your seemingly really successful business, go watch Landman for sure.
Yeah. Yep. And sharks, smell the blood in the water there, and you got people coming at you. And oh my gosh.
No doubt.
For anyone interested in learning more about the CEPA designation, what are some things that, skills, mindset, critical to maximizing this for your business, for your clients, and how do they go about getting started?
Yeah, sure. So the Exit Planning Institute is both an educational institute in a global community. And you mentioned this before, kind of in our like along the journey here in our interview, where if credentialing is not right for you, that's totally okay. I would say if you want to take advantage of, I think, a new way of thinking, of value creation mindset, and frankly, the wave of business owners that has finally come and is now here over the next 5 or 10 years, I think we all need to sharpen our skill set and learn more about both the business owner mindset, how to connect with them, and how to drive value and align business, personal, and financial goals. So if you just jump in, go to earncepa.com. If you went into earncepa.com, CEPA is CEPA, so the Certified Exit Planning Advisor. There are a multitude of programs and I would say forums for you to get involved. I would say credentialing's right for some. There's self-driven academy courses, there's chapters, there's free webinars, there's white papers, there's books. So there's very low-hanging fruit out there if you wanted to start to expose yourself to some of the stuff that we've been talking about here on the show. And so the process of getting started was your question. And I give the longer answer because it's going to be different for everybody, right? If credentialing is right for you and you want to join that kind of world-class community of advisors, then let's march down that path. It starts with a simple application. If you're saying, look, I don't know if I want the credential, but I want to learn more about what you guys were talking about, just jumping online to the website or following me on LinkedIn, I would say would give you white papers and books and podcasts to listen and read. And that would gain some exposure as well. So it all starts, I think, a little bit differently for whatever your goals are, but you can find it all at the Exit Planning Institute website.
And you talk about value, and I know you and have talked to Scott Bushke, our founder, about survey that they just did. And one of the questions was what would be one of the reasons you leave your professional advisor? And one of the top answers was they didn't provide value.
Exactly.
They didn't provide value. So isn't that kind of the gig, is to provide your client value? And so
100%.
This is a great way to do that. And whether you're going through the designation, or you're going to just learn about the great stuff that you're doing, check it out, because you don't want to be in a position where you're not going to provide value for your client, because then that's when you're at risk of losing them, because they don't see the value of the relationship. And
100%.
it all goes back to the relationship, right?
It does, right? It does. If they find value in somebody that has built a relationship and connects with them in a deeper level, both as people and as business people.
Right. What's the future look like for EPI, the CEPA? What do you guys got cooking for? What can our listeners look forward to learning, and what you guys got in the hopper?
Yeah, so I would say for the general listener, if two cool things that I think are coming up. One, we have our 4th season of our podcast, and it's all about how to create the value creation mindset for the employee. I think many people talk about, to business owners, how do you 10x your company? But we don't talk about how the employee can help you 10x your company. So I have cool special guests and even my own employees where we're putting together a whole new season that'll debut next year, all around the value creation mindset for the employee. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's top of mind. We've been in my studio recording the last few days. And then I would say the Exit Planning Summit. It's the largest exit planning centric event for the professional advisor in our country today. It attracts CEPAs, non-CEPAs, business leaders. Go to exitplanningsummit.com. You can check that out. It's in Nashville, Tennessee, so a great town, I think, to have a conference as well. And a lot of new elements coming to the summit next year that I think are really exciting, including a kind of a summit exploration time where I want you guys to begin to think about it as a festival style experience where a course of 3 hours, you can build your own agenda using an AI tool that allows you to create the most effective return on investment for you. So you could be going to sessions, meeting with people, building relationships, whatever you're going there for. Those 3 hours are kind of a build your own agenda time that include different stages, different platforms, different forums, and you kind of pop around to each one of them along the way. And so really excited about that too.
Yeah, I was at your last one in Port Charlotte, Florida, right?
Yep.
And it was an amazing event. You guys do it big. You guys do it right. There's over 1,000 people there, right?
Yeah, we'll hit the 1,200 mark next year. So 1,200 professional advisors from all kind of walks of expertise.
Nice. Yeah. So if you're thinking about learning more, I definitely would commit and sign up for that summit, because you meet a ton of great people in person. You're going to a cool town, have a lot of fun, but also learning a lot. You mentioned your podcast. Tell us a bit more about your podcast. Where can they find out about it? You mentioned season 4. What was your focus on the past seasons? Because I would imagine your previous episodes, you go back and listen and still find a ton of value.
Yeah, no doubt. It's called the Exit is Now podcast based on kind of what we've all been talking about, right? I truly believe that exit is right now, whether you're 25 years old starting out or 70-year-old trying to more immediately exit. Exit for us is always kind of all around us. We should always be building a business with the exit in mind. And so the last 3 seasons have really focused on the value acceleration methodology and our journey within it, right? So we have my journey as a business owner within our own methodology using Exit Planning Institute as a privately held family-owned business and our relationship with value acceleration. And what that kind of popped out, as I mentioned, was what I realized is that we've done a really nice job here over the last 10 years or so, growing a company that is value-centric, not just a business owner that's value-centric. And so in season 4, we've kind of flipped that and said, look, let's focus on the employees and how to build great culture and people that all are helping thrust value forward. And frankly, how are we compensating our employees for helping us create a more value-minded business and more owner mindset-centric business? And so we're really excited about that. But if you go to exitisnow.com, you can see all kinds of different episodes where we're kind of sharing our story around how do we create businesses that are highly valuable and aligned to goals.
Exitisnow.com. So go definitely check that out. EPI and Scott's podcast, a lot of great information on there. They have a lot of great, amazing guests who bring, interesting perspectives, just everything that they're doing in the ecosystem.
Nice.
Go to their website as well, check out all their information and see what you can get involved in. At least start your interest in becoming part of that ecosystem at EPI. Scott, this has been amazing.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for taking the time and joining me today. I know our listeners will find a ton of value with our conversation. And I know you mentioned follow you on LinkedIn. You got a lot of great content out there. And make sure to like, comment, share this episode, pass it on to your other professional advisor friends, your business owner clients. Get the word out there that prepare now, provide value to your clients, and help out everybody to make sure that exit is as best as and smooth as possible as we can make it. Make sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel, subscribe to wherever you find podcasts and how you listen to them. Until next time, everybody, take care. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast, and a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Cornerstone International Alliance. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, share, and comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We'll be back next week with more insights, strategies, and real-life experiences to help you take your M&A game to the next level.